In life, there are big things and there are little things. The big things, big adventures, big experiences, and big stories are like happiness orgasms. They create big-time happiness that quickly fizzles out. The little things, little moments, little conversations, and little achievements are more like happiness candles. They create little-time happiness, but happiness that lingers. Because big things come about maybe once or twice a year, but little things come with every new day. So, contrary to how you feel or what you've been told, little things can change the world. Cite my source? Okay, for example, on December 17th, 1903, it only took a mere 852 feet to forever change the world as we know it. If you could wake up tomorrow with one superpower for the rest of your life, what would it be? Go. Seriously, think about it. What would you pick? Bazinga. I actually don't care about your answer. However, I didn't ask such a question to deliberately waste your time. What I would like to bring to your attention are the knee-jerk superpowers that immediately come to yours and everyone else's mind. Let's see. There's superhuman strength, super speed, the power of flight. What else comes to your mind? X-ray vision? Maybe? Telekinesis? Anyways, all these superpowers, each and every one, are perfectly understandable choices. However, let's take a pause for the cause and examine the significant real-world application of flight. Jerry Seinfeld, a stand-up comic from the 90s, has an entire bit about how vastly different life was between pre-flight America and post-flight America. Seinfeld riffs on the notion saying, during the 1800s, a family vacation was a big adventure. If you lived in New York City and wanted to take the family on vacation, let's say you live in New York City and you want to take your snot-nosed family on vacation to the sandy shores of California, well, your trip, on average, would be a dangerous, often deadly 4-month trek. 8 months of your life, almost a whole year just to visit the goddamn Golden Gate Bridge. Today, people pick up their lives, hop on a plane, and move across the entire damn planet in less than a day. If you wanted to take the family on vacation to, let's say, the romantic streets of Paris, it would be a comfortable and often safe 12-hour plane ride, and then boom, you're there. Want to return home the next day? 12 hours later, and you're curled up in your bed with your favorite pillow. The historical narrative of how civilization went from pre-flight to post-flight is a combined effort from myriads of people, organizations, and companies. Conversely, the invention of flight is widely recognized and attributed to Orville and Wilbur Wright, aka the Wright brothers. When examining the history of flight, the historical narrative of how civilization went from pre-flight to post-flight is a combined effort from myriads of people, organizations, and companies. But conversely, the invention of flight is widely recognized and attributed to Orville and Wilbur Wright, aka the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers were born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. Orville Wright, born in 1871, and his older brother Wilbur, born in 1867, were the final 2 children of an already 7-children household. Before aeronautics were even a blimp on their radar, the Wright brothers shared a kindred fondness for the power of the press. In 1889, the two launched a weekly newspaper called West Side News. The paper was, well, it wasn't a hit. After a few years of running a commercial publishing press, the siblings desperately needed a win for the home team. You know what I mean? Thankfully, due to the invention and subsequent popularity of the bicycle in 1892, the Bros opened the Wright Cycle Exchange. Bicycle shop proved to be highly lucrative for the two. In fact, the bike shop's profits created the opportunity to fund their growing interest for innovation in the field of aeronautics. Now let's stop. Let me think for a minute. Without the invention of the bicycle, the Wright brothers wouldn't have opened the bike shop. Without the bike shop, they never would have invented flight. So what that means is, life is strange because genius makes way for genius, and everything under the sun, including you, is interconnected. On December 17, 1903, the Wright brothers achieved the first powered, sustained, and controlled airplane flight. A little thing, such as a coin toss, would forever determine how history is written. Whoever won the coin toss would fly first, with the loser heading up the second attempt. Now, on that day, each sibling, just like a coin, had a plus side and a negative side. Wilbur's plus side was winning the coin toss. Yay, good for you. And yet, his negative side is that his flight attempt was a colossal failure. For Orville, his negative was losing the toss, of course, but his plus side was successfully piloting the homemade Wright Flyer for 59 seconds, 10 feet off the ground, for a distance of, yep, you guessed it, 852 feet. Now, being the first person to do what literally no man in the history of the world has ever come close to doing, let alone figuring out how to do it, can sometimes have strange effects on the human psyche. Some people are in disbelief for days. Some people black out. Others lose their minds. One inventor really went off the deep end when he put it in front of the kitchen phone and called over and over and over and over, desperately trying to get in touch with his mom, who kicked the bucket 14 years ago. But moving on, the Wright brothers knew their flights were groundbreaking. Dodoy. Fortunately, a metaphorical rain cloud gathered over them that day as Orville and Wilbur's reputation instantly transformed the brothers into dishonest tricksters and unscrupulous liars. You have to remember, not everyone had a camera in their coat pocket. In fact, in 1903, if you wanted a photograph taken, you had to spend a buttload of money up front, book a session, wait for your appointment, drive down to the studio for picture day, and poof. After the smoke settles, you're given a single picture, and just like that, you're done. For those of you playing at home, the point I'm trying to make here, folks, is that in a world where I have more pictures than times my dad ever looked at me, pictures back in the 1900s were kind of a pain in the butt. So for Orville and Wilbur, without any picture evidence or reporters present, press, they ignored the Wright brothers' statements, refusing to publish their story. Every single publication sat, waiting for Ashton Kutcher to emerge from the janitor's closet, telling them that they've been punked. Instead of being heroes, the hot topic gossip was about two arrogant brothers from Ohio and their fake flight report. So naturally, they did what anyone would do. To establish their credibility, Orville and Wilbur invited the press to their next flight test. Brilliant. So, on May 28th, 1904, almost nobody showed up. Amos Reed, a local beekeeper and amateur writer, was the only person in attendance. However, Root submitted his eyewitness articles to a highly regarded publication known as the Scientific American. In the end, the two men were celebrated from coast to coast as national heroes. Orville and Wilbur Wright had no children. The two were lifelong bachelors, believing that a wife would only detract from their time spent on perfecting the airplane. Which I gotta say, if you've got the cojones to live without cleaning the fish tank or talking to the canoe driver, then you deserve more than just an ordinary medal. Maybe Superman's medal? Yeah. The Wright brothers spent the rest of their lives contributing to perfecting the airplane, establishing commercial flights, and living across the street from each other, never leaving their hometown of Dayton. Published in 2023 by Artana, First in Flight is a competitive game for 1 to 4 players and ages 12 and above. In First in Flight, players take on the roles of early aviation pioneers at the start of the 20th century. The object of the game is to outfly everyone else at the table. The first player to hit 40 flight points, or whoever has the highest score after 4 rounds, is declared the winner. But First in Flight is a historical game, too. Good toy. All of the aviators, big and small, are all here, under one box. In fact, the final pages of the rulebook contains historical bios of all the aviators. I'm not gonna lie, I was pleasantly shocked to find just how many female aviators and engineers contributed groundbreaking advancements towards getting your family to the California coast and back in time for Monday Night Football. Kudos to you, gals. First in Flight's gameplay is the perfect blending of 3 super mellow mechanisms: the ratchet system, push your luck, and a bit of hand management. Oh boy, howdy. I tell you what, they just don't make them like this anymore. Okay, first, the commonly called ratchet system. This is a movement mechanism where players move their pawns along a track. It's not called the roll and move system for a reason. Players can move along the track without the deterministic shackles of the dice. There's no limit to how far you can go. But buyer beware, because once you go forward, you can never go back. The real kick in the teeth is in the game's dynamic turn order. A dynamic turn order, sometimes referred to as a variable turn order, creates the active player on the fly, pun intended. The active player is always the person in last place on the track. So, moving ahead guarantees you that coveted spot on the board, but yikes and yowza. In the process, you give extra turns to your opponents, leaving you sitting at the table, digging into a bowl of popcorn because, seriously, you haven't had a turn in forever. Players take turns moving their pawn around the action spaces printed on the game board. Actions let players upgrade their flyers, fix problems with their flyers, acquire powerful abilities, and, of course, go for a flight to test their design and potentially put some big old points up on the board. Next is the game's push your luck aspect. This mechanism is fairly self-explanatory. I mean, come on, man, it's blackjack. It's blackjack. A push your luck mechanism is where a player chooses to either stop and settle for a confirmed outcome or risk everything for an undetermined, bigger, and better outcome. Let's take blackjack. In blackjack, players are asked if they want to hit or stay. If the player elects to stay, they leave their gains as is. But if the player elects to hit, they risk everything on one card, hoping not to bust. It's the safe familiarity versus a single chance at high risk, high reward. So in the game, when a player takes the go for a flight action, whoop whoop, they begin by shuffling their deck. Every player starts the game with an identical deck comprised of the following cards: Glide, Upgrade, Design, Flaw, and Experience. To begin a flight, the player draws flight cards one at a time and places them in front of them. All flight cards contribute a distance value. Before revealing the next card, the player in flight can choose to descend and end their flight, or top deck a card and add it to the row. If a player's flight ever shows 4 crash symbols, the flyer crashes and the flight ends immediately. Do not pass go and do not collect Kim Kardashian. And finally, the gameplay comes with a drizzle of hand management just around the edges. According to Board Game Geek, hand management games are games with cards that reward players for playing the cards in certain sequences or groups. Managing your hand means gaining the most value out of available cards under given circumstances. Well, if I'm being honest, First in Flight's gameplay utilizes more of a deck management system, as players are never forced to hold or play cards from their hand. As the game progresses, players can utilize actions to manage their deck by adding more positive cards, like upgrade, and or remove negative cards, like design flaw. Players can significantly min-max their odds towards a more rewarding flight. First in Flight puts you, the player, in the cockpit of control. Do you spend numerous turns managing your deck? Or do you set flight early and set flight often? Choice is yours. Okay, so what do I think? First in Flight is not going to burst your bubble, wrinkle your brain, or shake your foundation. The gameplay is too basic to kickflip us seasoned vets. And yet, I couldn't find a single damn thing wrong with this game. An average game plays in about 45 minutes, which is great. The gameplay is competitive, but not cutthroat, so it's perfect for families. The artwork reminds me of games produced by Days of Wonder. Everything's bright and colorful. The iconography is kept to a minimum. The board is functional. The cards, the pieces, they spared no expense. This is a top-notch production, don't you know? First in Flight fits nice and snug into what I call the Ticket to Ride category. Ticket to Ride offers a perfectly streamlined gameplay to engage the average civilian, with just enough meaningful choices and strategy to entertain even the most seasoned of hobby gamers. If you get a copy to the table, this is exactly what First in Flight offers. It's not going to razzle-dazzle your anemic D&D buddies, but it will knock one out of the park at your next family game night. As this episode and season come to a close, you may find this silly, but I like playing First in Flight because it reminds me that little things are important. When everyone has gone home for the night, I sit at a dim table running my fingers up and down the edges of the box. I sit with it and think. I think about how big the world is and how little I am. I close my eyes and I rest my head against the game box and remember that in life, there are big things and there are little things. Sometimes when I feel like a little thing, I play First in Flight. I play it and smile. Because if it only took 852 feet of little things to change the world, then imagine what this little thing can do. Right?